Stay with me. Open your eyes, sweetheart. Rita, I need a medic. Somebody help.
Make way! First aid coming through!
Right here, she's unresponsive.
Hello everyone. My name is Aisha. I am 7 years old and I come from Africa. Some people say that 7 years is not a very long time to live. They say children my age are still learning how to read big books, still learning how to tie their shoes, still learning how the world works. But in my 7 years, I have already learned something that many adults spend their whole lives trying to understand. I learned that miracles are real, and I learned that sometimes the smallest voices can carry the biggest stories. When I was born, the hospital room was very quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that feels heavy. The lights above the doctors were bright and cold. The machines around me made soft beeping sounds, like slow, worried heartbeats. My mother used to tell me that when I came into this world, I was so small. She was afraid to hold me too tightly. My fingers were thin like little sticks. My body was weak, and my breathing was so soft, it almost sounded like silence. The doctors kept looking at the machines, checking again and again, as if they were hoping the numbers would change. But they didn't. And then one doctor walked over to my parents. His voice was gentle, but his words were heavy. He said, "I'm sorry, your daughter is very sick." He paused. Then he said something that would stay in my family forever. She may not live longer than 3 months. 3 months. That was the time they gave me. 90 days. Just a small piece of life. My father said in that moment, it felt like the world stopped, like everything became still, like time itself didn't want to move anymore. But my mother, she did something no one expected. She didn't scream. She didn't argue. She didn't break. She held my tiny hand, kissed my forehead, and whispered into my ear, "Aisha, you are a gift, and no doctor gets to decide how long a gift from God will stay." That night, my parents made a decision. They said, "If she lives for 3 months, we will fill those months with love. If she lives for 3 days, we will fill those days with love. If she lives for 3 minutes," they said, "she will still know she was loved." So they took me home, and that's where my story truly began. The first weeks were hard, very hard. My mother didn't sleep. She sat beside me every night, watching my chest rise and fall. Sometimes my breathing became so quiet, she would lean closer just to make her feel alive. There were nights she didn't even close her eyes. She just prayed over and over again. Quiet prayers, tired prayers, hopeful prayers. My father worked all day, but every evening he came home and carried me in his arms. He spoke to me like I understood everything. "Aisha," he would say softly, "you are stronger than they think." 1 month passed, and every watching. 2 months passed, and I was still fighting. Then came the 3rd month, the month I was never supposed to see. And on that day, I smiled. My mother cried, not the kind of crying that comes from fear, but the kind that comes from hope, the kind that says, maybe, just maybe, this is not the end. The doctors didn't understand. They watching every trying, but nothing changed the truth. I was still here, still breathing, still fighting. My mother didn't call it luck. She didn't call it chance. She called it a miracle. And every birthday after that felt like something sacred. Not with a celebration, but a victory. But not every part of my stories is full of joy, because the greatest miracle in my life is also connected to the greatest loss I have ever known. The person who believed in my miracle the most, the person who stayed awake when every wise of asleep, the person who called me her little books from watching That You're Your Day. She got sick. At first, she said it was nothing, just tiredness, just a little pain. But the pain didn't go away. It grew, quietly, slowly, until one day she couldn't hide it anymore. The same hospital that once tried to save me now had her lying on a bed, weak, tired, fighting her own battle. I remember sitting beside her, holding her hand, the same way she held mine. And for the first time, I felt afraid, not for me, but for her. She smiled at me, even when it was hard, even when her voice was weak. She said, "Aisha, don't be afraid. God is still writing your story." I wanted to be strong, like she was, but inside, my heart was breaking. And then, one day, she was gone. No more soft prayers at night. No more gentle voice calling my name. No more warm hands holding mine. The house became quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that hurts. I didn't understand it at first. I kept waiting, waiting to hear her voice, waiting for her to walk through the door, waiting for everything to go back to the way it was. But it didn't. And for the first time in my life, the darkness felt heavier than ever. But then, I remembered her words. You are a gift. God is still writing your story. So I kept going, even when it hurt, even when I missed her every single day. Because if my life is a miracle, then I have to live it. Not just for me, but for her. Today, I stand here, 7 years old, still breathing, still fighting, still believing. I have never seen the world, but I have felt love. I have felt pain. I have felt hope. And maybe that is what truly matters. If you are listening to me right now, thank you for giving your time, for opening your heart. If my story stays with you, even just a little, then my voice has done something meaningful.
And if you ever feel like giving up, please remember this. A life that was given 3 months is still here, 7 years later. Miracles are real. Hope is real. And no story is over until God says it is. My name is Aisha. I am 7 years old. And I am still here, still living, still believing, and still holding on to hope.
That was breathtaking. You had the entire room on your side.
Incredible. Standing ovation. That's how you do it.
My heart is still racing. I loved every second of that.